Howdy folks, Tex here. Welcome to Southern Belle Bigfoot. Let me introduce y'all to a great friend of mine, Selena.
Hey y'all, I'm Selena. I started this channel because I had my own encounter, and I know what it's like to be ridiculed and unable to share my experiences. I want to give everyone a safe haven to share their encounters with these magnificent beings. I love to hear yours as well. Please email them to me at cwlenagarrett@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support me in my journey to the truth, my Cash App is $Selena Bigfoot, and I look forward to hearing from you. All right, I think I got it punched in enough time. I was hoping I'd say, I'm so glad to see all y'all. Oh my gosh, I've missed you so much. And I told Tex, I said, go ahead and add me a little early because I want to show some people before we lose all of our light exactly what I'm talking about when I say I stay out here on this porch with my babies. So anyways, y'all know you come out the back door right here at the carport. So this is the carport door. Me and my babies stay right there on that swing. I have everything but a chest of drawers and a refrigerator beside me. You know, this is the front yard, that big old front yard, and my vehicle, and then the lake. There's the famous bridge. And I'm doing this on purpose. So y'all come with me. Ginger's leading the way. What you got, Ginger? It looks like it's wore slap out, don't it? I've been.
Hello, Vic. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
How you been, buddy? I hadn't talked to you in a while.
Trying to keep up, but not too bad. I can't complain. How have you been?
You know what? If I was any better, it wouldn't be legal.
Well, that's a good thing. As long as you can say that, that's a really good thing.
So, what do you? I know what you been up to lately besides stirring up Dogman stories.
Oh, just work. Launched the new show, Dogman Tales, and just trying to keep up with everything to produce all 4 podcasts. You know how that is, though. I mean, you book a guest, and then when they either let you know last minute that something came up and they can't record the show, or they just forget altogether about the show and everything, you try to contact them to get a verification if they're still going to be ready, and they don't answer you. It's always interesting, isn't it?
You know what? It's never a dull moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about that. If it wasn't, I wouldn't know what to think.
I know that's right. So, I know it's been a while since we talked, and I texted you the other day. A very good mutual friend of ours, I finally got back in touch with. She's finally coming back around, and that Danielle Stett.
Well, that's great. I'm glad she's coming back around.
I actually had her on my show a little while ago, and she's ready to get back in the mix. But yeah, it was good to hear from her. It'd been in a long time since I talked to her. We got back in touch. So I want to, we've been talking a lot lately about, in the community and stuff about the uptick in these encounters. Have you noticed it too on your side of things?
Not at all. People ask me about that all the time about the uptick in encounters, and I haven't noticed any uptick. I'm not getting any more reports now than I got 10 years ago. So
Huh.
yeah, I haven't noticed anything to support the idea that there is an uptick. I think what people are noticing is their exposure to the community is growing, and with that, that's why they're getting more reports. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, in the past 10 years, I haven't noticed any more reports coming in than there were back then in 2015.
I think and I'm with you. It's probably a mixture of several things that people are noticing. One, the stigma that's been with it for a long time is not it's not as bad as it was. You know,
Oh, no
so
doubt.
I
Yeah,
think
as
a
time
lot
goes
more
by,
people
more
are
and more
coming
people
forward.
are accepting it.
Yeah, yeah. Especially on the Bigfoot side of things. I mean, they don't look at you like you had. Well, they still you still get looked at like you're crazy. You know, um, when you talk to a lot of people out in the public because they still don't believe that this stuff is real. You know, and much less when you mention freaking werewolves walking around. You know?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Definitely. But I mean, it's just one of those things. As time goes by, it's more and more in their face. And yeah, there are more and more people all the time who buy into the fact that these guys definitely are out there. So
Yeah.
as long as we're increasing awareness, that's a good thing.
Have you noticed any more violent attacks?
No, not at all. No, people wonder about that all the time. They try to make these guys out to be bloody,
Right.
mindless, monstrous killing
Right.
machines, but no, I mean, you're talking with a guy who's spoken with over just thousands upon thousands of dogman eyewitnesses. So
Right.
many of them were in really compromising circumstances, but the dogman didn't hurt them. It could have done anything it wanted to do to them, but they walked away from the experience without a scratch. So that right there tells me these guys aren't wired to rip us apart as soon as the opportunity presents itself, because if that's how they were as a whole, then I wouldn't have spoken with thousands upon thousands of eyewitnesses who were caught dead to rights, but allowed to leave without a scratch, like I said. Now, I'm never going to say that there aren't dangerous, deviant dogmen out there that will rip you apart if the opportunity presents itself, because you name what kind of critter there isn't an example, or I should say examples out
Yeah.
there that will do that. If you're talking about horses or cattle or
Yeah. Yeah.
camels, goats, pigs, whatever critter,
Yeah.
people,
And the thing about it, I mean, hell, if they were like that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you either.
that's right,
You know.
exactly. Of course, yeah, the people who say, well, you can't speak with the people who are killed by these things, and that's true.
Right.
But if I'd only spoken with 20 people who were dogman eyewitnesses and came to that conclusion, then yeah, that just wouldn't be right, because the sample size wouldn't have been nearly big enough to come to an accurate conclusion about the danger these things pose if the opportunity presents itself. But when you've spoken with thousands upon thousands of eyewitnesses, 4,000 dogman eyewitnesses, and so many of these people were in very compromising circumstances, then you can come to conclusions like that, because that sample size is a lot bigger than it would need to be to get an accurate picture.
Yeah. We had what I believe was a dogman attack not too far from where I had my encounters. A couple of years ago, it was a fatal one. Um, and it was interesting because it and I've told the audience about it before, but it was in Lipan, Texas, and there was no boy, and he took a shortcut through the woods to work every day. And one day he didn't show up, and they couldn't, and he wasn't back at home. So they went looking for him, and they found him. He was thrown off over in the brush with his throat ripped out from the front. And the sheriff's deputy and the justice of the peace, because it was a little bitty old town, they showed up along with the game warden and their civilian tracker. Well, as soon as the sheriff's deputy and the justice of the peace walked up, they said, "Oh, this is a big cat attack." Well, the game warden and the tracker said, "No, it was not. One, this is not how cats attack, and two, there's not any sign of a big cat anywhere in this area." Well, that disagreement made it into the papers. And then right quick, the body was cremated. So, and probably as a crow flies, it's about 30 miles, 40 miles from where I had my encounters. So, and then of course I'm doing this private investigation about another 20 to 30 miles on the other side of where I had my encounters. And I don't know, I don't think I've ever had this conversation with you, Vic, but I think these things stake out a territory and they just kind of make their rounds to it, just like a cat, I think Bigfoot do the same thing. And in these temperate climates anyway, where they don't have to move a lot for weather and stuff.
Oh no, I think that's what they do too. Yeah, when you're talking about an obligate carnivore like these guys, and I say obligate carnivore because the teeth tell you everything about the patterns or the habits of a predator or an animal. If you look at the animal's mouth and you see nothing but teeth that are designed to process vegetation, then yeah, that critter right there is an herbivore. But if you see teeth like a dog's, where it's got a mix of teeth that are designed to process meat and vegetation, then okay, well, I'm looking at an omnivore. Same thing with bears. Okay, yeah, look at their teeth. Well, yeah, I've got both kinds of teeth in there. The carnassials or molars are kind of a hodgepodge, like an adaptation to process both. So yeah, we're talking about an omnivore here, but any eyewitness who's ever been close enough to a dogman to see all of its teeth, they'll tell you every last tooth was sharp, like a shark's. Well, that right there tells us everything we need to know. We're talking about an obligate carnivore that makes its living doing nothing but eating meat. Well, yeah, if that's the case, and you're talking about a critter as big as a dogman as huge, with as ridiculous of a daily caloric requirement that a dogman is going to have, it's going to have to move around the way a big cat would. Because if it doesn't, then it's going to deplete those resources in whatever area it's in overnight. So yeah, they're going to have to move around a huge home range, like you said, just to make sure that they're in one spot for a short period of time. They move on to avoid depleting those resources. So it's an endless cycle. They can circle back to that area after a period of time, and that area is recovered and it's self-sustaining. So yeah, that just makes good sense.
Well, Vic, Selena, she finally made it back up to the house, so she's got signal now. So,
Hey, Selena.
Hey, Vic, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, glad to be here.
At least, did y'all get to see anything of my walk from the carport to the island and back?
about the time you hit the bridge, you lost signal.
Well, I got signal again when I got across the bridge, so I kept showing everybody stuff.
Mm.
I did get to see a lot of it. It's beautiful out there.
Yes, it is. And there was a purpose for me walking over there. I was going to tell about something I seen. But anyways, we can talk about that another time. But thank you so much for coming, Vic. I appreciate that. And I appreciate Tex stepping up and doing the interview while I took a walk. Anyways, so tell me, I want to know personally, because you've interviewed me before, but I've never interviewed you. So tell me, Vic, how you understand and know for sure that these things are real that you speak about.
Uh-oh, does that mean I'm in the hot seat tonight?
Yes, sir.
I shouldn't have asked you that. I forgot the question. I'm sorry. What did you want to know?
I said, tell me how you know for sure these things are real. What happened that you know for sure these things are real? that you personally experienced?
Well, I've never had an encounter with the dog man. About 40 years ago, I had an experience with, I think, 1,000-pound Sasquatch. But yeah, I've
Okay,
never
can
had
you
an
tell me
encounter
about
with.
that?
Oh, crap. I shouldn't have said that. Now you're not going to believe me if I tell you I'm 18.
You made me tell you my story.
Oh, no, I'll fill you in. To answer that question first, though, yeah, I've never had a dog man encounter, but doing what I do, you'd be surprised the kind of evidence that's shared with me. Well, by far and away, the most impressive doesn't even do it justice, really. By far and away, the most jaw-dropping evidence I've ever received was a piece of video footage that was sent to me about 10 years ago. And the story behind that video footage was this guy, either he or a buddy of his, found out somehow that a dogman or dogmen plural were living in this area where he lives by the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Well, either this guy, again, it's been so long I can't remember, but either this guy or a buddy of his took a more expensive game cam and strapped it to a tree trunk and set it to film. Now, the more expensive game cams, instead of only having an option to snap a photo when they detect motion, the more expensive ones, like the one he had or his buddy had, you could set it up so that when it detects motion, it films. Not just snapping a photo, but it's filming. Well, he sent me this footage that was taken in broad daylight, broad mid-afternoon, not a cloud in the sky, daylight, where this dog man, it came into view from left to right, going after this bait that he hung about 5 feet from the camera lens. Well, it walked between the camera lens and the bait, and as it was coming in, it was moving from left to right. So I got to see it from the very start, from his front right corner. And as it got right in front of the camera, it was more than close enough to pick out individual hairs. It was kind of like a coyote-ish, wolfish, base gray, and the tips. These hairs over here were black, and this patch of hairs were brownish color and coffee color. It was like a hodgepodge of gray, black, and brown. And it turned its back on the camera lens and went for the bait. And I was just blown away by the footage. And I'm thinking, holy cow, ready to swallow my tongue. Well, not long after I received this footage, probably maybe a week or 2 weeks after I had interviewed this guy, Rick, I forgot his last name, Rick something. He specializes in analyzing footage that people send him of Sasquatch they've taken photos of or they've filmed. He's kind of like Thinker Thunker, but he wasn't as well known. So I had just interviewed him on the show a week or two before I got this video, this link to a private video on YouTube. That's how he was able to let me watch it. So I asked him, I said, would it be okay if I shared this link with a guy I know who specializes in analyzing footage like this, but mainly of Sasquatch? And he said, sure, yeah, go ahead and send it to him. So I was thinking, great. So I took that link and I sent it to Rick there, and I stayed on the phone with him. I asked him, I said, okay, is it okay if I just stay on the phone with you while you watch this thing for the first time? He said, well, yeah, it'd be better that way. I said, great. So we both watched it. I watched it again. We both watched this film footage at the same time, and Rick was picking out stuff that I'd missed because I watched it several times before I was watching it with him. He picked out things that I had missed. And then I actually, as I'm watching it again, I picked out a thing or two that he had missed. And it just blew him away. I mean, it just blew his socks off, the same way it blew mine off. But yeah, that was the kind of video footage right there. That couldn't have been faked. That was a real McCoy. And then also other evidence I've received. Photos that would be like you sending your dog, letting your dog out to go to the bathroom on a bright afternoon, and okay, well, I'll take a picture of the dog. There's nothing in between you and the dog. It's bright and sunny out, so you take a photo. Evidence is that clear, that's that good. So, yeah, I definitely know that they're real.
Okay.
And also, too, when you talk with as many... Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
Oh, I was just going to tell you, I didn't know you had a Sasquatch sighting, so that's pretty exciting, too. But anyways, I will take your word for it. because, like I said, I think that you have common sense and some intelligence about you, and therefore I'm going to just take your word that you've seen this thing, just like you took my word when I told you I seen a Sasquatch, and not just one, by the way. Anyways, but if you let the crowd and certain people get the best of you with their comments, it'll make you not ever want to tell your story again. So I battled with that at first. So don't ever let anybody stop you from telling your story. But anyways, but do you think it's possible that maybe you tell me about your Sasquatch sighting? I know
Well,
it's a Dogman show.
well, I can definitely tell you about how much money you got if I do.
Just put it, just put it
Well,
on my put it on my tab, Vic.
Will do. Will do.
oh my
Well,
goodness.
yeah. Like I said, about 40 years ago, I was deer hunting. That's when it happened. The story behind it is there was a guy that lived on my street, a neighbor, who he was the true essence of an outdoorsman. I mean, holy cow, the stuff this guy had done. I mean, the things he had seen, I'd go and sit on that man's couch for hours and hours and just listen to him talk about hunts and places he had been and things he had done. And I was just blown away. And it's funny because one time even I'm sitting there and he's talking about something. And he just said, "Oh, by the way, did I ever tell you about that time I got attacked by that bear?" And I'm thinking, come on now.
Wow.
You got to be kidding me. A bear
Oh,
attack
boy.
now? In addition to all this other stuff? Yeah, right. He said, no, it happened. So he goes on to tell me about how he had spent a lot of time in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. I think that's where he was from. But he said, no, he said, I was hunting in whatever place up there, and it was a really remote area, and I'm walking through this pine thicket, and all of a sudden, the hairs on my butt start standing up, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, something's watching me. So he's just listening, and he doesn't hear anything, but it's a pine thicket. It's so thick he can't see very far at all. So finally he gets this bright idea, well, I'm going to drop down on my knees, and I'm going to look under the canopy and have a look around. So he got down on his knees, and he's looking around, and sure enough, he looks over, and I can't remember how far away it was, but he saw a black bear that was crouched down on the ground doing the same thing, looking right at him. So when he saw the bear, he's thinking, oh crap. And when the bear saw that he saw him, it started charging him. So he jumped up. He had a rifle with him. He jumped up, and it wasn't long at all before that bear busted through the thicket there, and he said it was on him. It bowled him over, and he said, it bit me right here. And he pulls his pant leg up and shows me his calf. His calf was like dangling as he was holding it up. Not, when you hold your leg up in the air, your calf is gonna dangle like a hammock kind of. Well, you can see these, not really pock marks, but the wide space marks where teeth had bitten into his, like around his calf from behind, from
Did you
around the
say,
muscle.
come on now?
And I'm saying, holy cow, this guy is the real deal. You've got to be
Oh,
kidding
wow.
me. These teeth were, I mean, just too far apart for a dog, a big dog's bite.
Right.
And the size of the holes, I'm saying that is a bite from a bear right there. You've got to be kidding me. This guy's a real deal. Well, anyway, back to my story. One day he said, you know what? I know you love the outdoors, Vic, and everything. How about you get your hunting license so I can take you down to the farm? Because he had a farm way out in the middle of nowhere. How about you get your hunting license so I can take you down to the farm and I can show you the ropes and we can do some deer hunting? And I said, okay, well, yeah, that sounds like a great idea to me. I'd love to do it. So I went and got my license, and he said his plan was that we would go down to his farm the day before opening day of deer season. And then that way we'd be in place and ready to go on the first day. So we did that. We headed down to his farm, and we pulled off the road there, or the highway, whatever it was. I can't remember. It's been so long. But we started heading down this lane through the forest. And we drove and drove down this lane, and eventually it opened up, and there was a pasture on the right-hand side of the lane there. And he knew I loved horses and everything. Well, there's a bay horse right there. So I'm taking notice of it, and he can see I obviously am. I said something about it, and when I did, he said, "Well, that's Red right there. You stay away from him. He'll kill you." Well, you don't need to tell me twice. Point taken. So we just kept on rolling. We never stopped. We kept on rolling down the lane, and next thing we're in the woods again. And then a short distance later, it opens up again, and more pasture on the right-hand side. And there's another bay with its head down eating grass just on the other side of the fence. I don't remember what that horse's name was, but I looked at him and asked him about that horse. He said, "Oh yeah, he's fine. That's so-and-so and so-and-so. He'll be fine. Yeah, if you want to pet him, have at it." Good enough. So we made it to the house, made it to his farmhouse, and then we got out and headed in and got settled. And before too long, it was time for me to head upstairs to the loft and get ready for bed. And he headed to his bedroom and did the same. Well, the plan was we were going to get up sometime before dawn, have breakfast, and then we would head out so we could be in place about half an hour or so before the sun came up. So we did that. We had breakfast, and next thing I knew, he said, "Okay, we'll get suited up." So we got suited up and headed out the door, and we walked across this green field, and I guess across a pasture maybe, and into the woods. Well, this was big country. I mean, you talk about mature growth city, and big hollows. Well, we walked down a hollow, bang, up another side of a hollow, down, up. And finally got to this spot heading down this big steep hollow. We got about halfway down that bank, and he said, "All right, this is your spot." He said, "You just go ahead and set up camp here, and I'll be a few ridges over hunting, and I'll come back in right before dark, and I'll pick you up on the way back to the farmhouse." I'm thinking, thank goodness, because I'd never be able to find my way back. I mean, this is big country here, big country, and nothing around, nothing. So I got all situated, and he heads off, and I can hear him traipsing off down that slope of the hollow, and then back up the other side, and up and over the ridge, and he's gone. And keep in mind, this whole area is just covered with at least a foot of tree trash, sycamore leaves, oak leaves, all that. So you're not moving without making noise. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm remembering all the stuff he was telling me to do, what not to do, and all that stuff. And before too long, the sun started coming up. Well, once it did, I'm looking around to get my bearings and everything and take a note of everything. And it wasn't long before I noticed that nothing was moving. Nothing was going on. So I just sat there, and I'm just doing my routine. Don't move fast, and just scan with your eyes as much as you can and all this. Well, I mean, it just seemed to take forever. But eventually, it was right around noonish, or maybe just a hair after noon, when all of a sudden I'm just sitting there up against this big oak tree, and all of a sudden this loud horse whinny. I hear this really loud horse whinny that had to be, I'd say, probably no more than 20 feet behind me, behind the tree. I'm leaning up against the oak. And then my mind went there. I'm thinking, oh crap, did Red follow us? Is that Red right there behind me? Oh boy, I'm done for. So I sit there, and I've got my mind's going a million miles a minute. And then it wasn't long after that when I heard a horse blow. Well, for anyone listening who doesn't know anything about horses can't breathe through their mouths. They can only breathe through their noses, their nostrils. That's why, if you notice, if you're around horses, you'll notice they're finicky about their noses. They spend a lot of time clearing their nostrils. That's why they're doing that. Well, if they get one crossways way up there, they'll do what's called a blow, where they just fill their lungs and they empty their lung contents right now through their noses. And if you're not expecting it, because of all that volume in their lungs and how sudden it is, it can scare you out of your boots. I mean, it's just loud and you feel a concussion. Well, I'm sitting there, and not long at all after that whinny, I hear this loud concussive horse blow. I wasn't expecting it. It's the same thing when I've been around horses that have done it, like to scare the dickens out of me. Well, after some time, I got to thinking about that, and look at how steep this bank is. A horse isn't going to want to come on this slope of this hollow, not one that doesn't have a death wish? And then also, what about the tree trash? To be 20 feet behind me or less, I would have a horse to get within 400 yards of me. I would have heard it coming. That just doesn't fit. So when I put two and two together, I just can't see how it could have been anything but a 1,000-pound Sasquatch. I really can't. I mean, that also brings up another question. How long had he been there watching me? Was he there before the sun came up? I don't know. But I didn't see one that day. All I can do is tell you the circumstances behind it and the volume of the lungs that had to be behind those noises that I heard. I'm a big guy. There aren't that many guys as big as I am. My lungs aren't nearly big enough to make the sound that I heard behind me. I mean, I've heard plenty of horses do blows, and that's the kind of volume that I heard making that blow sound behind me. So that's why I came to that conclusion about what actually was going on that day.
Well,
Did you
thank you for sharing that.
did it dawn on you at the time or later down the road?
Down the road is when it really sank in. I can't remember for sure. I don't want to lie and say I definitely thought for sure that day when I was leaning up against that oak that that's what it was behind me. My mind was just jelly at the time. So I don't think I put two and two together that day and realized exactly what it was. I don't think I realized for sure what it was until after the fact. But yeah, I was in pretty bad state after that. I was. That's not the only experience I've had either, where actually I think I saw one time, but I don't know for sure. I hate people. I hate it when people say that they definitely saw one when they don't know for sure that they did or not. And I've never been the kind of person that everything in the forest is a Sasquatch either. So I'm not going to say that I definitely saw one, but if you'd like to hear that story, I can put that out there for you and tell you about what
You can
happened.
tell me
All
about
means, go
anything
for
you
it.
want to tell me about.
All right. Well, that time I was walking, I decided to go for a walk out in the country. That's one of my favorite pastimes. I like to walk out in the country here. So what I did was I went to this place where there's an arching bridge that goes up and over this brook. They call it a creek, but it's actually a brook. I went to this one place where you had to walk a fairly good distance to get to that bridge. Then you walk up and over that arching bridge to get where I was at, where I saw the Sasquatch that day. But yeah, I walked over that arching bridge, and then I had walked through this green field about maybe between a quarter mile and 3/8 of a mile. I guess it wasn't 3/8 of a mile that I was away from that bridge. It was somewhere between a quarter and 3/8, closer to a quarter mile, I'd say, from that bridge. But anyway, I decided, you know what? I probably better start heading back to the truck. So I turned around and I'm heading back through that green field towards that bridge. Well, the green field was grown up about 6 feet. So I could still see over it, but I couldn't see a lot because you know how it is with a green field, it's not going to be perfectly level or anything like that.
Right.
So as I'm walking back, I had just turned around, hadn't taken many steps at all, when all of a sudden I just looked back towards that arching bridge. And because of the height difference between where I was and where that arching bridge was, and then that 6-foot green field between us, I couldn't really see anything that was going on actually at the base of that bridge on either side. Well, all of a sudden I see this movement, and as I'm watching, I see this black figure come into view, coming towards me up and over the arch of the bridge. Well, once it got to the middle part of the bridge, that's at the highest peak over the brook, I could see all the way down to his or its feet. And what I saw, I'm not going to tell you I saw a Sasquatch, I'll just tell you what I saw. I saw this figure that was probably at least as tall as I am. It was probably at least as tall as I am, or taller. And it might have been as tall as 7 feet. I couldn't really tell because of the distance I was and all that. But it was probably at least as tall as I was, or 7 feet-ish, I'd say. And it was black. And on top of his head, there was a very pronounced point. So it could have been a guy that was taller than me, my height maybe, or taller, that had a sweatshirt pulled on. Where, some sweatshirts, when you have the hoods up, their
Right.
hoods have a pronounced point that just sticks
Yes.
up and then it kind of ramps
Yeah.
down towards the front of your head. Well,
Yeah.
that's what either this guy had on, and black pants and black shoes, and was just black. Or failing that, it was a Sasquatch that was on the thinner side. What I saw wasn't really wide and robust. What I
Right.
saw was close to 7 feet tall or 7 feet and thin. And as far as shoulder width would go, wow, as far as shoulder width would go, his shoulders were probably not much more, I'd say my width, or maybe a little bit wider than my shoulders. So that's what I saw. And what really caught me was the way it was moving. Is it came up into view, and it was up on top of the arch. You could see as it was, I say it was running, but it was technically jogging. It was plucking its feet up in a really strange way. It's almost like the feet were sticking to the bridge and pluck it up to break the attraction, or like you're breaking a magnet or
Right.
whatever, but it would pluck in a strange way up and over the bridge. Well, once it got up and over the bridge onto my side, I'm walking fast now, and I'm thinking, yeah, you're never going to get close enough to make it to the far end of this green field and look left in the direction it had run. Because once it got to my side of the arched bridge, it turned to its right, to my left. And as it turned to my left, its right, I could still see its head at first over the top of the green field, because it was well over 6 feet tall.
Oh, yeah.
And after a certain period of time, I just lost sight of it. I don't know if the slope went down and that's why I lost sight of it or what, but I hurried to get through that green field. And when I did, I looked down the direction it had gone, and naturally, like I expected, I thought, yeah, you're not going to see anything. And I didn't. So that's what happened that day. More questions and answers. I don't really know for sure what it was, but if it was a man, then he must have had his hood cinched down tight in the front, because even where the face would be was black, the same kind of black that the rest of the figure was. So I can't tell you what it was that day. All I can tell you is what I saw.
Well, when you go to eliminating by height and body shape, and head shape, and all that kind of stuff, it kind of leaves you with one answer.
Yeah, I'd say, but it is, Tex. I don't want to say, I definitely saw a
Oh, I hear
Sasquatch
you.
that day.
Yeah, I hear you. I've, I've had some encounters that I believe I know what it was, but that's all you can say. You can say, well, I believe that's what this may have been, but I didn't see it for sure, so I don't know. And I'm with you. I don't think, I know a lot of people want it to be, they want to have that experience so bad, that they convince themselves that's what they saw. A good buddy of mine, Chester Moore, actually put out a video today, and I reposted it on my channel. And it's a black bear that's digging through a dumpster, and he put out the question: could somebody mistake this for a Bigfoot? Well, absolutely. It's up on its hind legs, it's walking around the dumpster, it's digging through the dumpster. If you saw that at a distance, and at night, absolutely it could be mistaken for a Bigfoot. But my thing is, it goes the other way too. How many people have seen what they thought was a big old bear, and it had actually been a Bigfoot?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It does go both ways, and it does make you wonder how many times it's happened, or it has gone the other way. So,
I think probably quite a few times.
yeah,
Just,
I wouldn't doubt that whatsoever. Here's my whole thing, though. What I saw that day, Tex, I'd say shoulders were 2 to 3 feet wide.
Right.
If it was a 7 footer, a 7 foot Sasquatch, again, I'm not saying that's what it was, but if it was a 7 foot tall Sasquatch, would it make sense to you how it could have possibly had shoulders that were 2 to 3 feet wide and not wider than that, though?
Well, the first Sasquatch that I saw was built more like and I'm sure you've heard this numerous times. It wasn't big and bulky. It was built more like an NBA player, kind of taller and more streamlined. Not the big bulk. Um, so I think they come in all shapes and sizes.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
there's different as you, me, and Selena are.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's
Oh, I'm
right.
sure they do, but my shoulder is going on about 24 inches wide, and I just don't see any way a Sasquatch is even 6 feet tall could have shoulders that are just 2 feet wide. I mean, the way they were built, even an anorexic one,
Yeah.
I would think that they'd have shoulders that are quite a bit wider. I just
Well,
don't see how that could be,
Vic,
but I don't
when you
know.
did the interview, or you interviewed me, and you were asking me to describe mine, if you'll remember correctly, I was telling you that it looked like, and again, please excuse my language. Um, I mean, no disrespect, but I remember telling you it looked like a person in a that you would put in a nursing home, a nursing facility that was malnourished, and that every joint was swollen except for it had no weight on it, so all you could see was the joints, the elbows, and the bone. You know what I'm saying? It was just, I'll never forget that. So you go from seeing this humongous thing like a black mountain to this little malnourished thing with what was a little deer antler hat. So how are you going to tell people that and sound like you got some sense? You don't want to sound crazy, but at the same time, people's asking you to describe them. So you either sound crazy, like you need to be in a psych facility yourself, or you either come out and tell them, hey, this is what I seen. Don't understand it. Still don't understand it to this day. It happened August 7th, 24. So I'm just saying, they come. I agree with Tex. I mean, they could be from gigantic to tiny, and it makes no sense. And I think it was what was her name? I want to say, oh, she's so pretty, and I just love her. I want to say Brandy on Woodwalkers. I hope I got that name right. But she said, "How do you know that it wasn't a Down syndrome or something? Because what if they have things like that happen to them, like humans to us? You never know."
Yeah, that's true. But the
So
frame is normally going to be the frame, though. I just
Yeah.
didn't think a Sasquatch would ever have shoulders that were, if it was over 6 feet tall, I just never thought a Sasquatch could have shoulders that are 2 feet wide. I just, I thought they'd have to be wider than that by quite a bit, but I don't know. There's so many things we don't know about them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. I've heard so many. You know. Well, the two that I've seen in the daylight were night and day difference. Um, because the first one he was every bit of 8 foot tall. He's about 50, 60 yards away from me. Built like an
yes,
NBA player.
Misty,
Wasn't
that's
built
her
big
name.
and
I'm
bulky.
sorry. I'm sorry. I just noticed. Thank you very much, Gary, for correcting me on that. Her name was Misty, and she was beautiful. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tex.
Um, but the second one I saw him through my binoculars about 40 yards into the woods, and he was hugging a tree. Now, this thing was okay. The cats that are gray and black and white and calico. That's the coat he had, and it was like fuzzy, like you know, that real light flyaway hair. Um, but I couldn't see his head because he had his head tucked on the other side of the tree. He was hugging the tree, and I think some of them have that notion of if I can't see you, you can't see me type thing. Um, but I don't. I don't know. I if that wasn't a Sasquatch that you saw, do you think it was? I mean, you said it was walking awful weird, but it moved pretty fast, right?
Well, see, that's the thing. There wasn't anything extraordinary about the way it was moving speed wise. It was moving at what would be a typical jogging speed for a person. So that's why at first I'm just wondering, okay, is this a, a tall guy that is just out for a run? And it was warm enough out that day where you would want to be wearing a sweatshirt, but it
Right.
wouldn't just be a black sweatshirt. It would be black shoes, black pants, a black sweatshirt, and all of them black. You know how it is with sweatshirts and all that. You wash them one time, and what was once a black sweatshirt's a dark gray sweatshirt. But what I
Yeah.
saw was black.
Yeah.
It was black.
That sounds like me. Mine was blacker than jet black. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like what the comparison they call night and day. You know, the it's even blacker than black, blacker than
Yeah.
night. You know, you can't describe that either.
Oh no, no doubt. It's just no color. That's the best way to
Yeah.
describe it. It's
Yeah.
just, it's not black. It's just no color.
Crazy.
So it begs the question, if it wasn't a Sasquatch, what was it? What I mean, because it doesn't sound. I mean, the way it was moving. You said it was walking strange, like it was pulling its foot out of, but like it's having to pull its feet out of mud every time it stepped. You
Hmm.
know, um, and the way I've seen them walk. They walk with their knees bent all the time. They don't kick it out straight. You know, um, it, I don't know. I don't know what you saw, but I don't. It doesn't sound like it was.
Yeah, it's just one of
How
those things.
you said the grass was the green belt was about 6 feet. How much taller than this thing than this was this critter?
I could see his head for the when it came down to my side of the bridge. What it did was it turned right, which
Right.
when it turned right and it didn't really slow down, it maintained its speed. But it got to my side of the arch bridge over the brook and it turned right, which would have been my left. And I'm watching it move from right to left. And I can see its head. I could see his head over the top of the green field. And I'm just watching it move at that same speed, what looked to be that same speed, until it just disappeared. I don't know if it was because the ground it was on sloped down or if it actually intentionally got down, if it wasn't a person. I don't know. Or if it was a person for whatever reason. But yeah, I watched it for a short period of time. I can't remember how long it was, but I watched it just
Right.
move for a short period of time and then it just disappeared as I'm trying to hurry to get my butt to the edge of that green field and look left down in the direction it went. But I just knew it. I'm out of position. I was at least a quarter mile away from where I needed to get to. And I thought that's the last you're going to see of this guy, this thing. When I broke out and got to the edge of the green field, I looked down the direction it had been going, he had been going, and nothing. I knew it.
So you're saying he was pretty quick, and you noticed that, other than you said its size wasn't nothing astounding. It was tall but not wide. And then you said that you didn't notice anything else, such as maybe it was quiet or you heard whistles or any other things that they say they do, which is the knocking and the grunting and you know, anything like, did you hear anything, or was it just strictly you seen something tall with that wide shoulders?
That's the thing. That day, I didn't hear anything out of the ordinary. No
Wow.
whistles. I couldn't hear it running up and over the bridge. Didn't hear anything of the sort. Nothing but nature. And it wasn't moving quick. It was at a jog/run that pretty much anyone could have done. It
Right.
Right.
wasn't in a hurry. It was just at like a steady speed with that real funky, not funky, but just an odd movement pattern where it was
So
acting
you're
like,
saying that it could have been a human? Did you smell anything? Because if it was human, oh my goodness. But my goodness. So it's kind of like it did nothing extraordinary to make you think that it wasn't human. So
that's
it was just
right.
the height and the sticking of the feet is basically what you're the only thing.
Well, the way
Huh.
it looked too, that the shape, the blacker than black
Even
look.
blacker than black. Yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
about
it's
that.
made.
See, I have not seen any humans that's blacker than black and black. Y'all know what I mean. You know what I mean. So what you never know, Vic, it might be.
So, Vic, I don't think I've ever got a chance to ask you this. What, what made you decide to start the Dogman, the stories and all this kind of stuff? Was it your experience because you thought you saw a Sasquatch later down the road. Is this, was this before or after you had started your shows and stuff?
Oh no, where I saw whatever figure, that person, or maybe a Sasquatch. No, that was probably about 6, 7 years ago, I would guess. Don't
Oh,
hold
okay.
me to that, but yeah, it was like 6, 7 years ago. So the shows were already up and running and all that. So it was just one of those things. When I get a chance to head out and go for walks out here, I've got in the big woods here, I like to go for nice long walks. I'll walk miles and miles without anyone else with me, and without a gun in a lot of cases, without any weapons. And I've
Right.
walked hundreds of miles through this big woods here. And yeah, when I get a chance, I just like to do things like that. Just walk out here in the country to clear my head.
Yeah.
Because when you produce all these podcasts and everything, and you're dealing with all the stuff that comes along with that, when you can get out into nature and clear your head, it's a great thing. So yeah, that's what I was doing that day. I thought, you know what? I've got enough time to head out and do this, so I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to come back and I'll do what I need to do as far as work goes, whatever. But no, as far as how I got my start in all this in 2007, 2008, I used to listen to blog talk radio shows, Sasquatch shows.
Hmm.
And every night back then, every night of the week, there was a new show on. Well, if you were in those chat rooms back then, you'll remember how they were just regulars. You would see them every
Right.
week in, week out.
Mhm.
Okay, it's Monday night, so I think that's when Bob Coyne's show would come on. Okay, Tuesday night, I think that was Campfire Shadows, and then on and on and on. Well, one night when I was listening to Campfire Shadows, Jim Bear Grant, he was the host of the show, and he had a co-host named, his name was Shane McMahon. He's now since deceased, unfortunately, but I was listening to the show that night when all of a sudden, just out of the blue towards the end, Bear made an announcement. He said that he was going to be stepping away, because I've always known that Bear, he loves to spend time in the woods. The more time he can spend in the woods, the happier he is, understandably so. So having to produce the show, that took a lot of time away from him being able to do that. So he said that he was going to be stepping away so he could pursue that passion even more. Well, he said, now that I'm going to be stepping down, there's a guy I'd highly recommend out there who I'd recommend that he takes my place. And that guy is Vic Cundiff. And he hadn't said anything to me about that before he made the announcement at all. It just blew me away. I'm thinking, holy cow, Bear, he thinks I'd be able to do something like this? He's got to be crazy. So he put that out there, and then after the show, he reached out to me about that, and I was asking questions about what would be involved and all this and all that. Well, I told him I'd have to think about it. So I did, and I decided to give it a try, and that's how I got my start. So in 2007 and 2008, I was a co-host for that podcast, Campfire Shadows, and then one night on one show, Tim Coonbo Baker and Bear, they had been out on this outing someplace, and somebody in their group, I can't remember who it was, but someone in their group saw what they called a dog-faced booger.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard them say a dog-faced booger, I'm thinking, okay, I know what a booger is. That's a southern term for a Sasquatch, but what's a dog-faced booger? Well, I found out later on they're talking about a dog man. And it
Ah,
didn't take long for me to think, okay, if you have a bad Sasquatch encounter, you can almost go to your local grocery store and find someone you can talk with to get help. But if you see one of these dog-faced booger things, a dog man, where do you go to get help? Who do you
Yeah.
talk with? So I thought, well, there really isn't anyone that is out there for that. So there's really a need out there for that. Well, it wasn't until years later in 2014 that I brought dogmanencounters.com online, the website. And it wasn't long after that before I had people from all over contacting me to share their experiences with dogmen with me. And then about a year after that, in 2015, that's when the first episode of Dogman Encounters went online. And I aired that first episode and haven't looked back since.
So, did you, as far as the existence of Dogman, did you have? I mean, when you first started hearing people talk about it, were you skeptical that, and maybe this is just a different type of Sasquatch they're running into, or did you? I get, where was that aha moment that you went, oh my God, there's something else out there besides Sasquatch?
Oh, that happened before I started the show, long before I started the show,
Mm.
long before I started talking with eyewitnesses. I actually spoke with my first dogman eyewitness back in 2007, believe it or not. And this old boy, he lived right on the edge of the land between the lakes, and he had one of the
Mm.
most frightening encounters with a dogman to date of anyone I've ever spoken with. But yeah, I mean, it didn't take much research to realize that there had to be something behind this
Right.
because of the similarities between eyewitnesses' encounters, the accounts. For example, if you talk with people, if grizzly bears aren't known to science, and you talk with so many people who talk about seeing a creature out there in the woods that walks with all 4 feet, plantigrade, and it's got ridiculously long claws as long as your fingers, and on its between its shoulder blades, it's got this hump, and
Yep.
the hair looks kind of grizzled up there and has like a silvery tinge to it, and the rest of the critter was brown. Well, and it's got round ears. Well, if you talk with this person over here who doesn't know this person over there, and they're saying stuff that corroborates what this person over here says, and it happens time after time after time, especially details later on when I actually was the one who was talking to these people and interviewing them, when they're sharing things that aren't really put out there on a regular basis
Right.
that supports what this person over here told you in private, then you know there's got to be something to that. And then the evidence starts being shared with you, and it just does nothing but show that, okay, well, yeah, there definitely is something to this, because that right there could not have been faked.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I've said this, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I wish my first encounter had been a Bigfoot, not a Dogman, because it would have been a whole lot easier to talk about, because I mean, I kept mine quiet for years and years and years. And before I came out of the proverbial closet, and I don't know, you know what? I don't know what these things are. I know we had a question um, in chat. Um, do you believe that they're interdimensional, or what do you think? You know what I think. I'm a flesh and blood guy, okay, but and I know what you think. I know what your opinion is, but would you mind in sharing your theory on what these critters are?
Well, it's a complicated question, and I think
It
there's
is.
probably a complicated answer for it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than one kind. I wouldn't be surprised if you have dogmen that have been around ever since we have, and then also on top of that, dogmen that have been made in government laboratories that are out there roaming around. And then also maybe you've got dogmen that are supernatural in origin out there. I mean, if you talk with as many eyewitnesses, close to as many eyewitnesses as I have, who are so credible, and they say things to corroborate other eyewitnesses or reports who have reported seeing very similar things, where, okay, this points soundly towards what they saw having to be from the ether. It has to be a supernatural being. And then you talk with so many eyewitnesses who report things, very credible eyewitnesses again, who report seeing things that clearly point towards the creature they saw being a flesh and blood creature that's got apparently no special abilities or qualities. And then other things too that happen when you talk with very credible eyewitnesses who report to you that they saw things that really support the idea that maybe what they saw might have been made in a government laboratory without getting into too many details. But I wouldn't be surprised for those reasons if all three cases were true. But I don't know that for sure. All I can do is just guess on that.
Well, I tell you what, we are unfortunately out of time, and it goes by so quick.
It does.
But don't run off after the show, Vic. I want to. I ran it. I had my first. I don't know what else to call it. Creeper, rake. I don't know what you call it. Encounter a few months ago.
Oh wow!
So, yeah. So I'll tell you about that right after the show. But off air, everybody else heard it.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate you supporting us and joining us tonight. Vic, you've been wonderful, of course. We're so glad you came. I love everybody so much. And thank you for giving me a wonderful welcome back. I think we had as high as 54. Or did we get higher? Thank y'all so much. I think that's the highest I've ever had. I love y'all very much. You make a woman feel welcome back. Thank you, Vic, and thank you, Tex.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Vic.